Okay, everyone, you guys should have the frog and the bluebird in Photoshop. Just drag your two images in Photoshop like you've done several times, and we will start from there. So the first image we're going to start with is the bird. We're going to make our brush pretty small, and we want to get the bird's head and a little bit of the wing. I always say the more the better because you can always take away. You can't really add on unless you go back and get more of the bird. I'm going to Command C to copy, Command V to paste, and get rid of this image. We don't need it anymore, and you don't need to save it. So now my bird head is on my frog image, and I'm going to name it bird. The first thing I need to do is turn it around, and I'm going to do that by going to Edit, Transform, and I want to flip it horizontal. So here's my bird. I'm going to hit Command T, and I'm going to sort of manipulate it just a little bit, just so it kind of fits where I need it to. I can make it a little smaller. So it fits right there. And then I'm going to go to Edit Transform again. And this time I'm going to go to Warp. And you're going to get a different grid. And this grid's kind of cool because you can actually manipulate it a little bit better and in different ways. So I can do something like that. I can actually curve its back a little bit. So it sort of lines up. You don't have to overdo it. That actually looks pretty decent. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to get rid of this part of my frog. And the way I'm going to do that is take my clone stamp like you've done before. Here's my clone stamp. Make sure I'm on clone. Make sure I'm on my frog layer. And I want to have a nice soft edge because this seems pretty soft. And hit Option, click the good area, replace the bad. I'm actually going to go down quite a bit here. And then remember, you can go through, take your patch tool and kind of blend it in a little bit. Okay. And then put my bird back, see if I did a good job. Now, the rest of it, we're going to work with just the bird. You can play with your colors to kind of match up with your frog a little bit. And one way to do that is Image Adjustments. All of these will play with your colors. I'm just going to go to maybe Hue and Saturation. I'm going to brighten it up a little bit, I think. My blue. That doesn't look horrible. And then I'm going to click OK. You don't have to use that one. You could go to Image Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, Levels, any of those, Vibrance. You can just kind of play with it until you're happy. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser, take a nice small eraser, and I'm going to kind of shape this a little bit better here. Get rid of some more of my bird. I don't love this feather here, so I might just kind of get rid of it. Okay. Now, we need to blend my dots and my bird feathers together. You can actually go to the point where I'll show you one way. I'm going to take my quick select tool and I'm going to get some of, make sure you're on the frog background, not that. I'm going to get some of these dots here and the pattern of the frog, and I'm going to copy it. When I paste it, it's going to be up here. Now, I can maneuver it so it's sort of on top of my bird. I can copy it several times. You guys know how to copy your layers. You can copy it several times if you want. And then it several times, you can blend it in by lowering your opacity. And then you can go through, take your eraser, and sort of play with it that way. You can also lower the opacity of your eraser as you blend it in, which is something I really like to do. And it helps bring patterns in, especially if you're dealing with like a cheetah or something similar. You can make this a lot smaller. So if you bring it up here, you can maneuver it any way you want. You can add smaller parts. You can add all kinds of things. I personally think this will make it or break it if you do a really good job with it. It makes it much more convincing. I also like to take part of my bird. I'm going to turn these 2 dot layers off. And what I like to do with my bird is sort of do the same exact thing. I'm going to take part of, actually, an easier way to do it is just duplicate your bird layer. I can't tell you guys any right way or wrong way to do it. I like to just kind of, you play with it a little bit. I'm going to take my eraser and I'm actually just going to erase my head because I don't need 2 bird heads. But I can use a little bit more feathers down here. And this way I can start lowering the opacity of that bird. And just kind of playing with my layer order. Okay. Watch what one you're on. And then start blending them together. If you're really, really good at Photoshop and you really enjoy doing stuff like this, you can challenge yourself with this project. If you're not so good at Photoshop, I suggest you start out with 2 simple things, 2 things that are similar in color, 2 things that are similar. I wouldn't try to go crazy. When you go to Google, you can search for animal combinations. Obviously, don't steal somebody else's, but you can get some ideas there. I'm going to kind of bring back this a little bit. And then start adding some more of my dots. And as I add more of the frog pattern, you can make it stronger. You can bring it stronger down here. And then erase what you don't want. And just really take your time. This should take a while. It's not something that's really easy. You can also play with the order, so where you want it in the order. Same thing for this section right here. That's going to go completely underneath. You need it on top. And how strong of a pattern you want. Maybe you just want it a tiny bit, if you want it a little bit more. So this is the animal combination. This is a much harder project. That's why we're doing a practice, and then you can go ahead and do your own. Like I said, you can Google quite a few. There are quite a few examples. Pinterest has quite a few examples. I think I have some in your the example section. But overall, take your time, work between your patch tool, your clone stamp, your eraser tool, and remember, don't forget, you can always change the opacity of your eraser tool, and you can duplicate the patterns and kind of manipulate them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask Mr. Francis or myself through email, and good luck.